Go ahead and record then. I'm recording now.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. I'm in Dr. Crawford's C10 shell, and I have the document up that I'm going to go over this first. And I see by the clock on the wall it's 7 o'clock. So are we ready to start?
Yes, sir.
All righty.
Okay.
All right. Good evening. This is Dale Lamb with Gardner Webb. Welcome to MELS 601 Add-on Town Hall for the AppTel. You should be in the final throes of completing the AppSell, student learning. And so the second and final evidence this semester is the AppTel. And that's for teacher leadership. To that end, we have the same system set up in boxes. The only thing different than this one, as we told you, we practice intentional abandonment. So we give you everything for the AppSell. We'll take a little bit away each semester that you have to step forward and start to do. And so what we'll take away for this evidence is you will not have an example. You'll have a template, and it will be just as complete as the one for the AppSell earlier in this semester, but this one will not have an example. So you'll have everything else that you had, template, directions, all those things, but we will not give you a completed AppTel example as we did last semester for the AppSell beginning of the semester. So don't send me emails. Don't ask me questions in a few minutes where the example is. There is no sample one this time, and that's intentional. You will have a template. So you've already figured out what it's supposed to look like from the AppSell, and so trust your judgment. Move on through this. So if we look at the class shells that each of you have asked the AppTel task and prompt, the template, the place you put your task in for review, for peer review and instructor review. You have the box to drop your completed peer review to get your grade for having done those. You have your assignment drop box where you put the individual task in for your class grade. When you have all 4 tasks, and that's correct, there's only 4 tasks of the AppTel instead of 5. When you have all 4 of them ready, you do your turn it in check here. Please remember, don't put anything less than the final one in there when your coach tells you to, because it's a one-shot deal. And then here's your place where you put your screenshot when you get your score from TaskStream. I've been real pleased with the scores this semester. Work's been very good work. The only thing that the feedback from the evaluators came to me is pay a little closer attention to your tense. These should be written in third person passive, past tense, as you've already done it. Some of you are writing in future tense or present tense. All technical writing is past tense. So make sure that you adhere to that. That's the only thing I have. That's not a negative. That's just for clarification. But the work has been good so far. Your instructors are doing a great job. Your coaches, very pleased with the work that I'm seeing come through.
Dr. Lamb, 24 students have cleared in TaskStream as of the last 10 minutes when I looked in there.
That's great. That is great. That's about a fourth. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. We've got 92 or 3, so that's pretty good. I'm hoping by next week this time, it'll be 92 or 3. So if you're not there yet, keep working away. You can't get behind. If you get behind, you won't ever get caught up.
Well, a lot of them have the clearance. They just have not submitted it. So it should be a lot coming in the next day.
I hope so. The evaluators are waiting with bated breath. They can't wait. It's so exciting to read these. All right. Now, I'm going to work from your template, and I'll go ahead and get started on that. Your template looks just like it did for the AppSell. It has the directions. Remember to put your name there. Leave everything that's in black where the yellow is. Make sure you understand that you got to write something. Where the red is, that comes out. That's just the examples. It's the same as we did before. And so, and you can see, although that's in red, you know, you leave these in. I should just change that to black while I'm thinking about it. Let's see if it'll do that. Yeah, there we go. And there's your graphic organizer. And then in task 4, you will write the 9 competencies that you didn't write. The 13 that you did 9 and 4. You did 9 required for your choice for the app cell. That'd be 13. That means you've got 9 left. So write the 9 that you didn't do when you did the app cell. And then, of course, your references come at the end, and then after that come your appendices. So let's start through this thing. Now, before we start, there's a body of knowledge that you need. You need to understand teacher empowerment. Now, where in a classroom at a board, I would diagram this out. There are 2 types of empowerment. I refer to them loosely as Big E and Little E. No, that's not the Earnhardts. Big E is empowerment as a school-wide leader. Todd Whitaker is the authority in that area. Empowerment as a classroom leader, I refer to that as Little E empowerment, being empowered in your own classroom. And that's the use of best practices. And of course, we know that'd be Robert Marzano. So you've got to look at both of those. For your school culture to be about teaching and learning, teachers first have to be leaders in their own classrooms. And then the notion is those are the people who will earn leadership positions in school-wide positions across the building. We don't need people being in school leadership, teacher leader positions who just roll the ball out either metaphorically or physically. We need the great teachers being our teacher leaders. People ask me all the time, how do you build a culture of teaching and learning in school? You know, they said, you always talk about going to Jones Sausage Road. What do they do at Jones Sausage? They make sausage. What do we do in school? We teach kids. How do you build that culture of teaching and learning? It's real simple. You work hard in those classrooms to build to build great teachers in that classroom, teacher leaders in their own classroom, and then they're the people who populate the leadership roles in your building so that that culture of teaching and learning of best practices spreads throughout your building. So let's go ahead with that in mind. Let's go ahead and get started and see what we've got to do for the AppTel. Task 1, description. The candidate will conduct a literature review reflecting various teacher empowerment and leadership best practices. That's where this is the state's language. I wish that said teacher empowerment and teacher leadership, but it says teacher empowerment and leadership best practice. That's 2 things. They refer to teacher empowerment as in the classroom and leadership is outside. I refer to both of those as leadership, as empowerment as a school leader and empowerment as a classroom leader. They're both empowerment, but there's 2 types again, being a leader in your room and being a leader in your building. And so we need to see research on both of those in your literature review. So if we look at it, it said areas to be investigated: teacher leadership and decision making, building efficacy and empowerment among staff, results-oriented professional development, recruitment, placing, and mentoring of staff, approaches for evaluation. So building efficacy is in your classroom. Everybody knows what efficacy is. That means that you're effective. So if you look at these bulleted parts that you've got to research, you'll say, oh, that's 2 things. That's teacher leader, that's classroom leader. Because efficacy is about classroom. All right, so in narrative form, APA style, you start with the background in the school, your school and community. You've already done that when you started your app cell, so that's a copy and paste. And then prompt 1, we need to see a literature review on these topics. All right, and during that time, during your literature review, You will create a checklist based on research to aid in assessing current best practices going on in your school. Now, my example here is from Todd Whitaker. As I said, these are best practices for leadership in terms of school-wide Big E empowerment. And so it's kind of a hierarchy. You start out with teacher has input on professional development. Teacher plays a role in the development of the school improvement plan. Teacher plays a role in setting school-wide policy. That's curriculum. And then the next one is teacher has input on the school budget. And the holy grail of being empowered as a school-wide leader, as a classroom teacher, is being involved in the hiring process or personnel. So that's Whitaker's, and again, it starts as a hierarchy. You start out being somebody who offers professional development because you're a great teacher in your own right. And then you get involved with the school improvement plan, then curriculum, then resources, the budget, and then the holy grail, you're involved in personnel. Those are the leadership roles outside of your classroom. But we want you to be great teachers to begin with. And so you should find something like Marzano, his 9 high-yield strategies. These are the way we know whether or not teachers are good in the classroom or not. Can they manipulate these 9 high-yield strategies? Now, in your materials, in your class shell, I have put Marzano, what it looks like in a classroom, so when you go walking in. Also, one of the documents on Marzano has the amount of variance that each one of these contributes to test scores. In terms of, we know if you use these things, you'll get better test scores. And so you will identify a checklist. Now, if your district has a walkthrough checklist, then that's what I would adopt. For walkthroughs, the 15-minute walkthroughs that principals do, most districts have one. If you've not, I would use a checklist of Marzano's best practices. Because with that checklist, you're going to do some walkthroughs. Now, make sure you understand the walkthrough. You're only going to do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. But you're going to get the aggregate data from your school administration. And you're going to be able to, at that point, look at what percentage of your teachers in your building use best practices. Let me say that again. You're going to do 2, 3, or 4 just for the practice of learning how to do a 15-minute walkthrough using a document, a checklist. Now that's not a viable sample of the population that we can infer anything from that sample. So we're going to go to school administration. Now, they don't have to give you names, but they can tell you what percentage of teachers use best practices and which ones are the best used and which ones are the least used. And so from that, you're going to have an idea of teachers using best practices in your classroom.
Dr. Lamb, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
We currently use, they call it a snapshot, which is a 5 to 7, which is a more abbreviated version.
Yes.
Where you walk it in, you're looking for standards, your daily assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable? They call it a snapshot. It's supposed to be abbreviated, but would that be acceptable use for collecting data?
I would probably, if it's just a snapshot, the walkthroughs are supposed to be 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a snapshot, one of those 3-minute snapshots is probably not detailed enough.
Okay.
You might want to talk to your administration about what they think about that.
Okay. Because there's a template, and after the snapshot, that snapshot is then emailed to the teacher to let them know.
Right. I mean, that's different than a walkthrough.
Okay. I was just clarifying.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a question here. What if our district doesn't do walkthroughs anymore? Our administrators and evaluators have to do bell-to-bell. That has nothing to do with what we're doing. I'd like for you to do some walkthroughs, and you can find out from them, from their bell-to-bell observations, about best practices. But we want to teach you how to do the point of this exercise is to teach you or get you started to learn how to go into a classroom and have a document that you're looking at that there's a skill involved here. Most of the time when you walk in a classroom, if you're not practiced in this art or skill, you don't pay attention to it. When you walk out, you don't know whether you remember where you saw those things or not. What we're trying to do is to teach you the first level of observing teachers, which is using a checklist. You'll have to learn the bell-to-bell evaluation technique of your district later on, but we're giving you baby steps here. And I've got a precursor to this one that I'm going to introduce you to in just a few minutes. But we want you to do some walkthroughs. We want you to do some walkthroughs to get practice in using an instrument when you walk in a classroom, that you have a purpose when you walk in a classroom. And this is a transferable skill, so that even if your district doesn't do 15-minute walkthroughs, this is a transferable skill to when you start learning to do the bell-to-bell observations. Again, it's a building process that we're trying to get you started in. Now, to that end, I've got a link that I'm going to open up, not today. I've got it hid in your shell. But I've made this one live so you can see it. Right here in the bottom of all of your class shells, there's going to be a link. I'm not going to open it up until next week, so you won't be in there bothering it. When you get ready to do this, you can click on this link and you can go in and you can download little videos and do it on Google Docs, where you watch little 5-minute videos of undergraduate students doing lessons, and it's got a little checklist that goes with it. It's harder than you think it is. I'm going to tell you right now, if you haven't done this before. And so I've partnered with the undergraduate people. For those of you who've never done a walkthrough or never done an observation, this would be a good place to get some practice, just doing little 5-minute ones, and then with a checklist, so that you can go back and say, did I see this or not see that, kind of thing. So this link will become live next week. I'm going to turn it back off in this shell, but it will become live next week. So when you go in and you click on it, it's going to take you to a candidate folder. And here's the lesson plan rubric, and here's the lesson plan video. And it tells you what to do here. And you go in and you pull one of these candidate folders out at random. You watch their little video, and then you score it using Google Docs. It's kind of like, again, it's a check sheet. I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm going to introduce this to you more at length next week, and I'll make it live for that. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it tonight, but for those of you who are nervous about doing walkthroughs, this will help you. So it's a building process. You learn to do these little 5-minute videos, then you go do a 15-minute live walkthrough, then you can work your way up to a full teacher observation later on, not with us, but later on when you get trained to do that. So again, it's a building process that we're trying to put you through that will help you develop that skill set. So we've got this planned out so that you can develop that skill. All right. So when you get to task 2,
Dr. Lamb, before you go to task 2, can you go back up to task 1 again, to the prompt 1? As a reminder, when you're doing your literature review, each of those areas, building efficacy, a minimum of 3 references for each of those. So that would be 15 references once you complete that task, a minimum of 15 references for prompt 1. Okay.
Okay. All right. Then task 2, you're going to identify possible gaps between teacher best practices in the classroom and research best practices. Again, your few little walkthroughs won't give you a total picture, so that's when you're going to ask your administration, how many of our teachers use the 9 high yield strategies? Which of them are used the best? Which of them are used the least? You're gonna be looking for gaps between what you know are best practices and what's going on in your building. And then you will address each of those, and you will graphically display that using the instruments instruments you use to collect data on your school in terms of how many of your teachers get an opportunity for leadership and how many of them are using best practices. And what you're going to find out is in schools where teachers are rewarded with leadership positions and get to work their way into those based on their ability, you have more better teachers. If the system to become a school leader in your school is eeny, meeny, miny, mo, then you won't have very many good teachers. The corner of the realm in good schools is great teaching. Everybody understands that's the way you advance around here. That's the way you become known and respected. That's the way you get to be on committees and help make decisions, is you've got to be a great teacher. So what you'll find is schools where folks don't get to serve in leadership roles, there's no incentive to be a great teacher. They get paid the same whether they're a good teacher or average or poor teacher. And so what we're trying to do is create and incentivize a system where great teaching is rewarded by giving leadership positions in the school. That's the whole notion here. That's building a culture of teaching and learning. Let me repeat that again. We're trying to find a way without having money to incentivize teachers to be great. It's just that simple. And the way that you do that is the ones that are great, you allow them to take leadership roles in your building. It can't be any simpler than that. Task 3 description, you write your professional development plan. How are you going to develop these people? I should see some small group. This is where you look at Linda Darling Hammond. And, she's the guru of staff development, professional development. There's some more modern people, but you need to start with her. The 3 people that I've listed tonight are kind of the progenitors or the founders of these movements. You go past them because they're old like me, but you got to start with the seminal work. The seminal work in teacher leadership at the classroom level is Robert Marzano. He ran the McReal Midwestern Consortium. Our both North and South Carolina evaluation systems are based on McReal, on Robert Marzano. Todd Whitaker, he did the seminal work in leadership outside the classroom, empowerment as a school leader. It's advanced beyond both of those people, but that's where it started. Linda Darling Hammond is the guru of staff development. Again, it's gone past her. That's where you need to start. And then when you're doing your research, those 15 references that Dr. Stedman mentioned, 3 of those better be those 3, but then more modern stuff that's developed since then. But we always start at with the original gangsters. That's where we always start. That's just best practices in research. And then you will write your action plan, which is a growth plan for staff development. And then you will write your 9 competencies. I'm going to show you my growth plan, what mine would look like. I don't remember if I put it in your, I hope I didn't put it in your shell. Let's see. I don't believe I have. Let's see what we got here.
It would be under the Aptel template and materials if it's there.
Let's see. You're right. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, it's here. Dang it. That's too much help for you. So we've got Marzano here. So this MTSS for teachers, that's mine. That's my professional development plan that I came up with, that we use as a template when we work in at-risk schools. For the college, we do a little pro bono work, and this is kind of what we work off of, is this template. And so I'll open it up. So this is what mine looks like. And again, it doesn't have all the who, what, where, and when that yours should have. So I don't want to see one that just has these on it. I want to see one that has all the sections, just like, person responsible, formative, assessment, summative. But what I want you to see from this is that we're using our best teachers to teach our not best teachers, and that we're doing a lot of work on the individual best practices and PLCs, and we're limiting the amount of whole group that we do. Now, if nobody in your building is using best practices, which I can't believe, but if that were the case, we might do a whole day of whole group instruction in the library for everybody. But that's the least effective form of staff development is whole group. Most effective is one-on-one, and and the most efficient is through PLC work. And so if you'll look at this, you can see I have each of those 3 strategies embedded in my professional development plan. This is a plan that we use, and why it doesn't have all the specifics in it, we use this as a template when we go out and work again in at-risk schools. As a college faculty, we use this template. And we take this and then we plug it in and we flesh it out for the individual school.
Is the time period for this template a year, or is it?
It's 1 academic year.
Okay.
This is mine. Mine's for an academic year. And yes, your professional growth plan should be for 1 academic year. You have to make a new one every year. You make a new one. And this is the time of year in the spring of the year that you would make one for the fall of the year. That you would start looking at a plan to have in mind. You can't wait till fall to start it. And if you read through this, you'll see, we have to start with new teachers, and we have to look at the folks who ended up the year having areas for growth, some needs growth teachers coming out of the spring that we recontract. We got to have a plan for them in the fall.
And that kind of goes back to what Dr. Shepard was talking about last week when he was presenting, when we talked, and others when we talked about action plans and those kinds of things.
Yeah. And so, yes, you have to have a system that's legal. This is a legal system that works in action plans as well. But the teachers that you end up at the end of the year that are not where you need for them to be, you've got to have a plan for them starting in the fall. And that this takes into account as well, beginning teachers and low performing teachers. And it also feeds into action plans. It feeds, as you can see right there, it feeds into action plans. This is the legal template that you have to use. But you get one-on-one peer coaching for new teachers and teachers that are below standard. You're doing PLC work on individual best practices on a weekly basis, at least once a week. In PLCs, you're working on those best practices, and you're using whole group sparingly because that's the least effective method of professional development. But this is my plan. It shows you how you can incorporate all 3 types of staff development, but yours needs to be fleshed out. Remember, this is just this is the template that we use to start one of those plans that looks like this. Going back to this, your plan should have all these in it. As you can see, mine just has the first half. We build the others on site when we go out and work. We start with this as the template, though. So this is real. This is how you do this. This is not theoretical. You need to build a professional development plan that is realistic and can be run by a school. Now, whether or not your school adopts it or not, we have no control over that. But you should build it as if it were going to be adopted. You've got to do all your research. You've got to make it sound strategically and research-based. That this would be the way that you would work to improve your faculty once you become a principal. You don't always get the best teachers. You don't always inherit the best teachers. I became principal of a junior high one time, and I had 37 vacancies when I walked in the door at Eastway, Jamal Crawford. I had 37 the day that I walked in. Tell them how easy it is to find people for Eastway Junior High School.
It's not.
Now we know where the gray goatee came in.
It's not.
Mine's white. I wish mine was gray.
37 will do that to you.
37 will do that to you.
37.
And it's the middle of July, and you got 37 vacancies.
Wow.
And you're going to have that many beginners and new ones. You better have a plan to deal with them to try to get them better. Yeah. During that process, I asked a man, did he wear a chicken suit? I actually did. I asked a candidate if he wore a chicken suit.
Do what it takes.
Do what it takes. That was back in the days when the Checkers were out at the old Independence Arena on Independence, Big I, whatever it's called now, Bojangles Coliseum. It was the Charlotte Coliseum back then. They had the Checkers, the hockey team played there, and they had all these people who were big supporters, and they wore chicken suits. And he was one of those people. And I said, you don't wear a chicken suit, do you? He said, no. I said, well, I can hire you then. Now, if you're wearing a chicken suit, I can't be hiring you to come to work here for me if you're going to show up in chicken. So, absolutely a true story. I was flagging cars down out on Central Avenue, Central and Eastway. Can you teach school? So regardless of how you get them or don't get them, you got to do something with them once you have them.
Truth.
That's one of those truisms of our business. What you going to do now, hero? This is who you got. Go pick the best ones, and it's easy to go into a fight with the best ones. But if they're not the best ones, it's your job to make them the best ones. And that's what the AppTel is all about: is taking and transforming your staff into a staff that understands a culture of teaching and learning, and that great teaching has its rewards beyond just your paycheck. That's what the AppTel is all about. It's fairly straightforward. It's a lot shorter than the AppSell, a little more research-based. But I do want you to get the opportunity to do some walkthroughs. As I said, next week when we get to looking at task 2, when you start doing those, I'll show you how to use. It takes a few minutes, so I won't do it tonight because my time is up. But I will show you how to use those links and do some little pre-service evaluations, little 5-minute lessons.
Dr. Lamb, they're on spring break next week now.
Well, I said,
Yeah,
a week,
it'll be the week after.
That's what I meant when we get back. That's why I didn't put it in now, because I knew we had a break next week and I'd get 1,000 calls next week. So I'm going to wait till you come back to spring break to make that live, so that I won't get questions till then when it's more appropriate.
I will tell them too, and I'll talk to them more about it tomorrow night. Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Shepard, and Dr. Crawford are all 3 working on some instruments that they use at their schools and their districts. I will be sharing some things with them.
Right.
Like I said, we provide lots of resources, in 601. We don't give you nearly as much in 603 because you should be able to start finding them, but we help you a lot now. So they're working on getting me some things that I will be sharing with them over the next few days. So as well.
All right. So that's the AppTel. When you get back from your break, I'll show you how to go do those little pre-service videos. We'll expect at that time that you'll start doing some walkthroughs, try to see how that works, and it's not as easy as you think it would be. And then
Dr. Lamb, answer David's question when you get a chance. I couldn't catch it in time.
Let me see. Sure. I think that's a great idea, David. David wanted to know, could he use some of our walkthroughs and compare them to what your district does? Absolutely. Now, if you're going to use ours, you can survey for school-wide leadership. You can send a survey out, Google Docs, SurveyMonkey. Let me make sure we understand this now. This one right here, your survey of best practices for school leadership, you can send that out as a survey. You cannot survey Marzano. You have to use that as a checklist. What would happen if you sent Marzano's checklist out as a survey? What would everybody tell you? Well, yeah, what idiot would be dumb enough to say, oh, I don't use best practices in my classroom. Have you not seen my test scores? So if you use these, and you certainly can, I don't have a problem. If you survey this one, that's why it says survey of best practices. You can survey it to find out what they get to do. But now you got to do, this is a checklist. This is not a survey. Do not ask teachers if they use best practices. Go find out. Because they'll all tell you, just like every parent will tell you their child is gifted, every teacher will tell you that they use best practices. It's up to you to determine if that's actually true or not. You can't take people's word for it in our business. That's why they hire you. You don't teach a soul. Your job is to make sure they're doing the right thing. And you can't take their word for it. That's not how it works.
Dr. Lamb, somebody asked the question. Yes, you just as a reminder, you will be enrolled in 603 this summer. It's for 10 weeks and
Mm-hmm.
will begin somewhere around the end of May. Before school's out, you will
May
start
21st.
603. And remember, you're responsible for your clinical internship with a minimum of 80 hours this summer as well. So, that's just a reminder. It doesn't stop.
Man. I always suggest if you can commit 2 weeks to coming back to your school while they're working on the master schedule, you could get 80
Right.
hours in 2 weeks.
Makes a lot of sense.
But before we get through with you, the first week in May, when we end up in this semester, we're going to go ahead and introduce the OMA that week and let you that 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks that you're off in between when we come back on May 21st. You can get a good start on the OMA. Task 1 of the OMA is just a data dump. It's just go find everything that's on your state report card and in your accreditation report. You got to bring it all together.
Yeah, we'll have another town hall before this semester.
We'll have a town hall and we'll get started on. And so that 2.5 weeks is the perfect time to gather all that information, and then that'll launch you into the OMA for the summer. And you got to be quick because you got to get the OMA and the skip this summer. And then the fall in 605, you'll have the CAP and the PSYOP. Now, the PSYOP again, you'll get a somewhat template for the PSYOP that just tells you where everything that you need is located. The PSYOP, the last of these, when you put your school improvement plan together, there's no new work in it. The trick is knowing where to go get the previous work. And so I have that road mapped out for you. That's a little bit kinder than generally is my personality, but I try to do something every now and then. It's nice.
Yeah, David pointed out something. Many of the schools, because of Florence, Hurricane Florence, they're going longer this summer. So what you'll have to do is continue with like you're doing until school is out, and then you can become more intense with your internship and the things that you do as soon as school is out. Yeah.
Summer school goes through August, so you've got plenty of time to try to come and, after school's out, to try to get a couple of weeks to get you some extra time. And if you can, if they're doing something with the schedule, that's a good time to come and get some hours in the summertime. But because school's going to go longer this spring, that would also give you the opportunity to get more of your regular type hours of internship.
And as a reminder, if not outside your district, but inside your district, if you have any year-round schools, then that's an opportunity to get permission from your administrator or your site supervisor. Can you go spend a day or two at a year-round school and get some things, get a different experience? Those are things that are okay as well. So
now, Dr. Stedman's a lot nicer person than I am. We hold some truths to be self-evident. That's pretty easy to understand. But he just passed over something that I'm going to hit on. Don't be that person that goes and tries to go to another district and do this. That's a no-no. You can only intern in the district where you work. So don't be petitioning me or doing any of that stuff. You're an employee of the district that you're in. They've done a background check. You've been vetted, all that stuff. For you to go to another district to work, they would have to go through the same process as hiring you. Medical, background check, criminal check, transcripts, the whole deal. That costs $180 plus $150. That's $330. I'm not paying that for you. The university will not pay that. They won't allow me to pay it if I had it. We've been through that recently. We had a student who lived in one county and worked in another, and she wanted to intern closer to home in the summer. No, we don't do that. It's the memorandums of understanding that we have only extend to the district that you work in. They do not extend to a neighboring district, and they're not going to let you come in unless you've been vetted and gone through all those processes. Well, somebody has to pay for it. It's $180 for all the academic sides, $150 for the background check. That's $330. The district will not pick that up. Gardner Webb will not pay it. So the answer before you ask me is no. You can do it in another school in your district, but you can't leave your district to do your clinical. It's just that simple. And that's a hard and fast rule. All right. Any more questions?
And we'll pick up tomorrow night. We'll spend a little more time looking specifically at task 1.
Okay. All right. So tomorrow night, I'm just going to get it started tomorrow night, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Shepard, Dr. Hamilton, or Dr. Crawford once I get things launched tomorrow night. If Dr. Stebbins not with us, because I have a doctoral law and policy class tomorrow night from 6 to 9.
I should be, and I've already posted the schedule, so we've got it followed.
Y'all got it. So I'll just kick it off tomorrow night, get everything rolling, and start recording on my end, and then I'll turn it over to y'all, and I'll go back to my law and policy class for EDCI, and we'll be good to go.
But I might be here at 7 o'clock on 2 wheels, but you're still going.
We'll get started.
You're still going to open it up though, no matter what.
It'll be good. We'll be on time.
Okay.
It's always important to be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be.
All right.
It's kind of what school business is about.
That's right.
All right. I'm signing off. Dr. Stebbin, you got anything else you need to know?
No, they're going to hear everything. They're going to hear a lot of this again tomorrow night, but a little more intensely. But thank you, Dr. Lamb. Thank everybody.
You.
I'll see you tomorrow night.
Everybody have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll
Stop.
send this out later on to this evening.
All righty. In meeting for all.